presentation is brought to you by the Beljanski Foundation. Over 50 years of research towards curing cancer the natural way.
Thank you very much. I'm Jose with Purified Solutions. I'm the founder. Many years ago, I was just an IT guy working at a corporate office that was really stressing me out. And then we moved to Florida. And in Florida, I was there just basically the weekends because I had to still come here every week to work. So I was working here 4 days a week and had a 3-day tropical weekend. And while I was there, I said, well, what else can I do? So I started selling filters for other companies. But unfortunately, I couldn't sleep at night because they were forcing me to push products. Like any business, out there, they're trying just basically to survive and do the thing. And obviously, if they have inventory, they have to get rid of it. So I was one of those guys where I was forced to actually meet a quota because I was a salesperson. Long story short, I decided to just do my own research, become certified, and I treat every client as if it was a brother or sister or myself because I want to make sure that they're happy. Our company is really geared into word of mouth, and that's our greatest advertisement via or method. So we're very, very excited about this. So in 2012 is when I founded Purified Solutions in New York. And I said, I'm going to dedicate my whole life on helping people. And it's not just about water, but water is one of the main things that we have to worry about because a lot of people are very oblivious to it, to what's going on in the environment. So I became a certified water specialist with the Water Quality Association and also certified installer, which means that I teach the plumbers on how to treat the water specifically for specific contaminants or needs. Because filters that are out there on the internet or on these big box stores is just for aesthetic purposes for the most part, for the taste and the odor, but it doesn't really focus on removing certain things that may be in different water sources. For example, groundwater is different than source water. New York City has water coming from the Catskills. Also Queens, parts of Queens, not all of Queens, but all Brooklyn. And the water in Long Island is completely different. It's coming from the ground, which means that our cesspools, the sewage, all the fertilizers, the animals doing their business in the patios, all that eventually seeps into the aquifers, maybe, decades later. So in other words, what we are actually finding now, or the traces that are appearing, are from decades before, 40, 50, 60 years ago. And things that at that time were not really that publicized or known. That's the reason why these companies were dumping things in the soil, because it was not really a known contaminant. It was not really thought through, in terms of what could happen in the future. So I don't think that they were doing it on purpose. It's just that they were not really aware of it. And now we're becoming aware of it. So now we're actually penalizing people who are dumping things, right? Which is a good thing, but it's very hard to remove these contaminants. So a single filter, like the ones in the pictures, unless it's a very specific type, will hardly do anything to the water, except for just the taste, the color, and the odor. That's why a water purification is what's really necessary for anyone that has water coming from the ground. So, in 2016, Purified Solutions was selected as the water dealer of the month nationwide in November. This is an article from Water Quality Products, which is a very high-end magazine that shares information between consumers and also other water companies, water treatment companies, that is. So they took us as an example, and I was really proud of it. As a matter of fact, I mentioned Alex Lubarsky to be one of my influences. Because of him, I'm here. So, hydrological cycle. This is how the water cycles in our environment, especially in places like ours here in Long Island. So if you see that circle on top, it shows how the gases, impurities, and also other industrial waste that normally evaporates because of high temperatures, atmospheric pressures, and so forth. Eventually, they fall into the ground if we don't breathe it before that. So if you see these industries with, the high smokes high up there, and you would say, well, that's far away, that's not going to reach us. It actually is known to actually lower to a level of our height from the floor almost every day, especially before sunrise. So unfortunately, people think that by going outside and doing exercise very early in the morning, which is a great thing, but you can feel the air, how thin or heavy it is in some cases. So with that said, I also have a little particle counter that I put on the table here. If you can see those numbers, I'm sure it's not close to zero because we have a lot of particles coming in here. And that's really what's causing a lot of issues with lungs lately, respiratory issues. So the reason why I mention that is because we do also air purification. And we're very big on purifying the water, purifying the air. And the reason why air is very important for us as well is because, unfortunately, the number of deaths are higher than breast cancer compared to lung cancer in New York. And I'll show you a slide about that in a few minutes. So the water treatment, these 4 pictures here, you can see the different levels or different cycles of how the water is treated in general. On the upper left-hand corner, you see the water coming in, and that's basically just removing the solids, the bigger objects, and then it goes through mesh and sand and gravel. The one on the right, it shows how it exits that first treatment into the second. And now, in this picture, you'll see where their chemicals are added. Obviously, they have to add chemicals to treat the water in order to either kill bacteria or to remove other chemicals that EPA states that it should be removed. So the water district, they do a very good job because this water is not even close to clean before it gets to their place. By the time it gets out of their place, it's sparkling clean. It looks like that, right? But this is what happens. So before and after. The picture on the left is where the water comes in without the solids. It's just basically water with all the chemicals and dirt and bacteria. And the one on the right is hours after the chemicals are added. So now you have like a clear swimming pool. So water travels through old pipes, then into your home, the food, body, then into cesspools or sewage, and then back into treatment. What happens is basically that it's a cycle. So unfortunately, because the standards, the maximum contaminant levels, are set at specific rates, and the way they determine these levels are of a specific formula. And normally they do it with rats, other animals. But they say, well, if 1 to 100 of those animals die or have some kind of negative health effect over 1 million, then that's the range that we want to stay with. Obviously, also cost can be involved, in terms of calculation of what they consider a level, and therefore the treatments, because treatments are becoming very expensive, especially with the new emerging contaminants, as you probably hear in the news. So all these chemicals, all these words that you see in that picture are still allowed. They are reduced. Some of them are removed. Some of them don't even exist in some source of water, right? But for the most part, there are traces of that, especially pharmaceuticals. And what I mean by that is that imagine you take a pill of some kind of hormone. God forbid, you're very ill and you have to take very, very heavy medication that you cannot even keep it close to someone else who's healthy because they'll become ill if they even breathe it, right? But naturally, we dispose of it. And that goes back to the cesspools, sewage, back into the aquifers, and then years later, it's going to come back into tap water. You don't see it, you don't smell it, right? You don't taste it. And sediment, carbon filters cannot remove them. As a matter of fact, many purifiers cannot remove them. So we have traces of pharmaceuticals and other dangerous materials in our water today that we must remove. These are a very small list of emerging contaminants. As you can see, I can hardly fit in that picture because there's a lot more. There are so many. And they may be able to detect them, but they don't even have a name for them yet. They don't even know what the effects are, so it's not a priority as like anything else, right? So we're busy, we have busy lives. You may create a to-do list like for the whole year. You know, these are my goals for this whole year. And you probably reach half of them because some of them are not a priority. Things happen, you have to stop what you're doing. So that's what happens also in the water industry. If they put a list of contaminants they want to look into, it's only when they have the time, or if somebody says, hey, you better look at it now because people are complaining or people are getting sick. But we're waiting for that to happen before the trigger is, is applied. The body contains, we say 50, 60, 70, 80% water. But the idea is basically that a fetus would have very large amounts of water, around 90-ish%. And a very elder person would have about 50%. So at least 50%. That means that we at least have half of our body is full of water. And if we don't remove the contaminants, they stay in our body. The way we look at it or think of it is that something has to remove the contaminant. So it's either a filter that you actually put outside your body before you ingest the water, or you let your body become the filter. And things such as heavy metals, they're very, very hard to remove from your body. Once they're in, it's very hard to remove them. So it's best to remove them beforehand. In the industry world, I came back from a water convention, Las Vegas, this week, so I hardly had sleep. But it was so interesting seeing these manufacturers showing you how they can create a whole house purification system. You're like, oh, great. So I'm looking at how each step, goes through. Then I see a UV light or a purifier after the whole system before it gets into the house. And I'm like, well, so why is that there? Well, then, just in case you have bacteria growing in the storage tank and so forth. And I'm like, so you are allowing bacteria to grow and then just removing them? Why not inhibiting the growth? Why not tackling from the ground, from the foundation? Why even allow it to grow? So well, it's easier that way. It's less expensive that way. So now what their mentality is, well, we want to give what the customer wants to do, the least costly option. But the thing is now you are depending on that little extra layer that is removing the potential bacteria, virus, algae, biofilm that is growing in the water, because it will always grow if there's no chlorine or some kind of ozone treatment. So I was not really happy to see that in some cases. Very interesting though, how that is trending that way. Purified Solutions, my company is really geared, thank you, in disallowing this from growing. We want to make sure we treat it before it actually has a chance to grow. So my time is running out. I want to show you a few more slides. These are super funds in Long Island, meaning these are places where you can't drink water from the ground because it's already super contaminated. So they are allowed time to go through and treat it before they use it for other businesses like gas stations and so forth. Nitrate is a big problem in Long Island because of the lack of oxygen. These fish are dying. Chromium-6 is very high in Long Island. The World Health Organization says it should be around 0.02 parts per billion. And we have seen up to 7 parts per billion. So it's about 350 times greater. In some places, not everywhere, some places. So let's see if I can go to the air purification. It's a big thing. Just going back to the slide for 30 seconds. So you can see in the bottom here, estimated deaths in 2019 will be about 7,700 compared to breast cancer, 2,500, 2,400. Either way, either of them are bad, but people are ignoring the fact that lung cancer is a big thing. So, just going forward, we should purify the water for sure. We suggest drinking 1 gallon of water a day if you can. You want to make sure that your urine is about these colors. So above the red line is where you want to be. So look at the color of the urine and you can tell if you're drinking enough water or not. Okay, so solution is, the Water Quality Association says the final barrier, and I call it the final product. What they say is no matter what happens at the water district, no matter what happens between that district water treatment and your house, because the pipes are so old, you want to do something at the point of use, point of entry. So basically, you would have, if you see the picture there, the red color is the raw water, you know, from the district, and the dark blue is your filtered water for the pipes, appliances, and everything else. And the light blue, which is in the kitchen, second floor, or first floor in this case, is the light blue, which is basically a purification system. And this is what happens to pipes and water heaters. So imagine our body is also receiving that oxidation and scale. These are the systems that we carry, one of the systems, a few. So from the left to right is the lower quality to the higher quality. The one on the right is basically a whole house reverse osmosis system. And you want something that backwashes, that gets rid of all the garbage. These are point of use systems. From the bottom ones are bottleless systems like water coolers. They have the filters inside, so you have hot and cold water. With the button, you don't have any bottle deliveries, no plastics, nothing to worry about whether you have water or not, if you leave it outside, if it's freezing, if it's very under the sun. The ones on top are just systems that go under the sink or countertop. And then the one on the very left is a little bottle that infuses hydrogen, molecular hydrogen. And I think I'm done. So I have a few new products that I want to show you in our booth. These are the special. We have Expo Special. And this guy we are raffling, so you can just sign up, and we don't call you unless you want to. And it's a free water purification that has 10 years warranty, and it's based on reverse osmosis. So thank you very much. We're on booth number 145. And if you have any questions, you can come to the booth. If not, we'll see you another time. Thank you very much. I'm Jose Grullon.